What's your mood today? Type in chat your mood. I'm looking for audience participation. Excited, hopeful. All right. I like that. Hopeful, anticipatory, curious, looking forward to the weekend. Rich, me too. Grateful, Brad. All right. Gratitude. Love it. It's good to say it. Good to name it. Good to call it. Mixed. Gary, anxious, grateful. Should always check in with our mood. What's going on inside? Because we're going to talk about what's going on inside today. All right. And then next, this one, I really want you to type something in. What are your intentions for the next 50 minutes? Real brief. What are your intentions for the next? You're here, active listening, active learning. Good. Rich, learn something. Gary, lean in and learn to be more effective. Parshu, learn. Brad, learn. What can I take and implement? This next 50 minutes is a space of opportunity. There's no such thing as time management. We choose what we do in every space of opportunity. And so it's important to think about what our intentions are. Like, you're taking time to be here today. Some people join class or something learning and they're wanting to either reinforce or validate what they already know, or some people want to challenge and invalidate what's being said. And so that's fine if that's your disposition. I'm inviting you to lean in, really look for one thing that you can take away today. There'll be context around AI. I'd like for you to think about AI a little bit loosely today. Pull away from the hype. We're going to lean inward a little bit more today because that's really where the real power for the future is. My name is Bill Tingle. I spent most of my career in technology leadership. I've held most positions of technology, worked for 20 billion plus companies. I've got 3 patents with my name on it, and I've always been about innovation. 5 years ago, I pursued my dream of starting my own coaching business. I've coached over 200 people into promotion or opportunity, and I'm accredited PCC ICF coach. So that's a little bit about me. There's so much talk about what skills we need in future. There's so much talk about AI is going to replace jobs, and there's a lot of fear around it. And in fact, we've already seen companies cutting people out so they can use AI instead. And it's kind of crazy because a lot of companies are cutting out the costs, but now they're spending more money on tokens, and there's like mass confusion in some places. So it's a turbulent time in that regard. And I think eventually things are going to kind of level out. But there's so much hype around, we got to have these AI skills. I don't disagree. In fact, we're going to talk about that. I'm sure we're all using AI. And when I say AI, I mean generative AI, agentic. I'm talking to a lot of people in their entire life, didn't know about technology. They couldn't code. They're writing applications now. So we all know the power that AI is giving us. And that's great. By the same token, everybody has access to it. And the one thing through all of this that's not changing is the human side. What skills do we need as humans to raise the bar? Because the fact is, everything that's going on, the requirements on our human skills is going up. For those of you that were in my session on not being passed over and the need to go from operator to orchestrator. Well, that whole orchestrator thing is all about the human side. And so everybody's chasing the skills. I'm all for it. For those of you that are getting certified in AI, great, we should do that. That's the table stakes. The competitive advantage is going to be the quality of your inner game. And so many people walk around just automatic. Wake up, have coffee, take a shower, get ready, get on the computer, drive to work, and they're not even thinking. They're just automatically doing what they're doing. And the inner game is a call to wake up and really be a thought leader for yourself and a thought leader for others. It's going to be a very different session today than what you've experienced before. I started out as an assembler programmer, one level above the machine, and then abstraction got higher and higher and higher. But throughout my entire career, there was always the hottest job. And there's that next technology, whether it was SAP or PeopleSoft or cloud or Java. Like, there's always this new technology and it's the hype around it, and you can make a lot of money. But what happens over time is it becomes a commodity because over time, everybody has access to it. And so we can talk about all the things that AI can do. And we know it. Just today, I probably saved 20, 25 hours using AI. And so it's just a tool for us. But the things that AI can't do, AI cannot build trust and psychological safety. And we're talking about the importance of leaders creating psychological safety and creating trust. The AI has nothing to do with that. Making value-based decisions when things are confusing and there's ambiguity. Orchestrating people, leaders are going to need to coordinate and facilitate communication, and will become more and more important as we go forward. AI has no emotions, humans do. And the ability to read people's emotions, manage our emotions, huge, huge skill. And then exercising critical and first principles thinking. Obviously, we as humans have that. So that gap is really our human edge. Let's really dig into this and say, okay, I've been thinking about this. There's the obvious, but like, what have we been missing? And really think about, where do I have blind spots in all this? Because we do. We have physical blind spots just by the biology of our eye. We all know we have blind spots. We're going to talk about that today. So there's 3 competencies to scale yourself as a leader. And it really is the inner game that is going to give you the greatest power to scale yourself as a leader. And by the way, this can be leadership in your community, leadership at home, leadership at work. First is self-awareness. And self-awareness is to become a powerful observer about your thinking, your assumptions, your blind spots, and real time under pressure. And so we're going to touch on that as one of the 3 pillars. The second one is emotional regulation. I can't tell you how many people have blown their career, literally blown their career, because of their inability to manage their internal state and be in control of their responsive rather than just reacting, without thinking. So that would be the second pillar. And then the last one brings in AI, and it's around AI fluency and judgment. And that's the area today where I really want you to explore for yourself where there's additional opportunities with AI, because we're all using it. And I sense this group's probably really mature in your use of AI. And so let's not assume I'm good at AI. I know it. Where are we missing opportunities with it when it comes to scaling ourselves as a leader? And so we're going to talk about that today. So across those 3 pillars, we're going to talk about 4 moves. The first one is the observer that we are. And this one I've been studying and working with clients for a long time, and there's so much more to it than meets the eye. Second one is moods, and moods drive possibility. And so for those of you that were on at the beginning, I asked you, what's your mood? And we're going to talk about the significance of that answer when we get into this. Trust, we've been talking about for generations, decades, and I want to go a little bit more specific with trust, and then your stand, your personal stand. And then lastly is leading your own use of AI, which we'll be really talking about extending it from what you're doing today from an inner game perspective. All right. So we think about ourselves as an observer. And I remember years ago when I felt like I wasn't getting much feedback from my boss and from a CXO. And I realized the higher you get in an organization, the less feedback you're going to get. And if you have your own business, the only feedback you're going to get is from your customers. And so we have to be, and this ties to blind spots, we have to be really good observers. And so I read a book years ago called The Tree of Knowledge, and it's a book about the biology of cognition. There was a metaphor in there that as human beings, it's as if we're living inside a submarine looking through a periscope. And if you think about it, it really makes sense, because we have our senses that we're taking in everything people are doing around us, whether it's on the computer or in a physical space. Our senses are taking in the world, and we have these biological blind spots throughout our nervous system and our brain that filter out things that we don't see and we don't pick up. We also observe and make interpretations through our experiences, our memories, our feelings, our knowledge. That's why 2 people can hear different things. They can see different things. And so it's good to be aware that because we're sort of looking through a periscope, we have to be more open to being wrong, more open to considering different things. And that will give us more power by doing that. And so this metaphor has been really helpful to me as we think about ourselves as observer. And so I really encourage people to wake up and stop just reacting to situations automatically, but start responding, which means putting a pause, a space between an event and your response. So there's a trigger, somebody says something, you read something, and rather than just automatically reacting, put a space there to think about it and respond. And that could be with yourself, and that could be with somebody else. But the key is to know the difference between what's actually happening and the story that you're telling yourself. And I'm sure we've all had experiences where we're telling ourselves a story about what's going on and we're completely wrong about it. And so we have to put in that space. And so something that I use in my coaching program is something, the OAR model, observer, action, results. We get feedback from our results. If you look at the image on the left, it's helpful to think about this mental model of ourself as a human being. The being is in the center, but it's helpful to think about ourselves in terms of, as a human, I have language that I speak with, I write with, I communicate with, I listen with, and most people think about communication as sending out information, like a computer sending information across the network to another computer. And that's fine. That is communication, sort of like data communication. But what's really important to think about communication is a way that we humans coordinate with each other. And when you say, oh, there's a communication breakdown, well, that's because the coordination wasn't effective because the language that was being used wasn't effective. And so in this way of being, we have our language and then we have our emotions. And when I say emotions, I also include moods. They're different. I'm not going to go into that. And then our physical body, which is our outer body, and then our brain or internal body. And so the intersection of those is our way of being. And this is the key. The state of your way of being is highly influential to the actual actions you take. So if you're not getting a result that you want and your actions are ineffective, the best place to go is to your way of being. What is it about my emotion? What is it about my language? What is it about my body? Am I missing some knowledge? Rather than just keep trying the same thing over and over again. So it's helpful as we think about self-leadership to be very aware of what's going on with our language, our body, our emotions. And something that I think is really helpful, it's helpful for me, and I think it's been helpful to my clients, is that when we think about observing ourselves, and again, if you had no feedback from anybody else and all you had was yourself, you at least have the ability to observe yourself. Imagine two cameras, like a security camera. There's one camera that's on the ceiling and it's looking down on you. And you're looking through that camera, observing yourself, and you're thinking about what you're saying, you're thinking about your actions you're taking, you're thinking about the decisions making, your body language, your expression. If you can be mindful, you can have much more control and influence over how you're showing up with people. But that camera looking at your body, it shows you what you do, but it doesn't really show you why you're doing it. So that's where we go to the second camera. And this is the inner game of what's my thinking? What's my assumptions? What's my mood? What's going on with the story I'm telling myself? I think it was Mark Twain said, we talk all day long and sometimes to other people because we chitter chatter all day long to ourselves. So what story are we telling ourselves? This is where the growth really starts. It's not in really any new behavior, but it's in a new awareness. It's really thinking about our beliefs, our interpretations. And self-leadership isn't about just doing something different, but seeing something you weren't seeing before. People will come to me. Somebody reached out last night and wants some help with blind spots. Well, the thing about blind spots, if they're blind spots, we don't know what they are. The more we can be a better observer, the more we can reveal our blind spots. And we still might need mentoring and coaching, but we can do so much more than we are today when we do that. Take a moment before moving on here and think of a recent decision where you accepted an AI output at face value without questioning it, challenging it. You just took it as is. What observer was operating that? Who were you being in that moment? What assumptions, time pressures, mood shaped your willingness to just accept the answer without challenging it? I think this is one of those key areas where the real risks and dangers are coming of the way we can use AI. If we think about ourselves as an observer and we're using AI, what was the observer when you just accepted it? And if we can become more aware and critical around our thinking around we're using it, we can start having much more consciousness and intentionality with how we're using the tool. So moods drive possibility. I like to say moods and emotions go together. And a lot of people don't think about their moods. In fact, sometimes somebody will go up to a person and say, oh, you seem like you're in a bad mood today. I'm like, no, I'm not. Why would you say that? And they're not even aware of their mood. And so moods determine what we notice before we make a decision. A lot of times people don't want to talk about it. When we can really tap into our emotions and our moods, we can know how to observe them and shift them if we need. We can have a much more power in how we're acting and thinking, especially with AI. And so moods aren't feelings, they're predispositions for action. It determines what feels possible, what feels safe. If you wake up in a bad mood, as you hit the alarm clock, pull the covers over, and I'm not even getting out of bed. Or if you wake up in a bad mood, it's like, yeah, I got to go to this meeting. And I'm going to let them have it when I get there because I'm really frustrated. Or you could wake up in a mood like, man, I'm so excited. It's Friday and I really want to get a lot done today. I'm going to innovate. I'm going to do some deep. Like your mood totally shapes your actions. And that's why if you go back to that last diagram, the OAR, our moods shape everything that we do. And so moods shape what's possible. So if you're a leader, and you're in resignation, the company's had some layoffs, your funds have been cut, they're bringing in some new leader over you, and you're in resignation. If you're a leader in resignation, your ability to take effective action is severely hindered. If you're a leader in what I call ambition, like I'm excited, I see the possibilities, I know what's going on, I have a vision for where we're going. The same situation and two leaders could be in opposite directions, and moods can be shifted. Moods can be managed. Moods are contagious. There's a lot of press about toxic leaders. Toxic leaders typically carry a mood that is not conducive to effective action. And so as leaders, and by the way, when I say leader, I don't mean direct reports necessarily. I mean, anybody that's coordinating action in some direction is a leader, but moods are contagious. And so understanding the power of our moods and not letting other people impact our mood. If you're a leader of people, your team is always like a big antenna reading your state. Is the boss in a good mood today? Hey, have you talked to so-and-so? And as a leader, we have to realize they're contagious. And if we know that's true, then we want to manage our moods and also influence the moods of our team. And lastly, moods can be managed. A lot of times people think, well, I'm in a bad mood. That's just the way it is. I'll eventually get out of it. But actually, emotions and moods follow our action. If I wake up and I'm in a bad mood, or if I wake up and I'm feeling resigned or I'm not in a good place, I know I just have to get started on something. I can get up, listen to music, I can dance, I can start working on something, and the action will drive that mood. So we all are not victim to our moods, and we can all shift them. So this is very helpful for people that if you wear your emotion on your sleeve or you feel like you get stuck a lot with your moods. There's a lot of different moods that we could name, but there's 4 basic ones that if you just are aware of these, it can create such an awareness that can be really helpful for yourself. Because remember, moods are a predisposition for action. If you just let your mood be a negative mood, you are setting yourself up for some output that you're just not going to care about. I had a bad day. I was in a bad mood. Well, that was your choice. That was my choice if that happened. So there's 2 axes here. On the y-axis, there's our ability to accept or oppose a situation. On the x-axis, there is what we perceive to be a fact, unchangeable, or a possibility for the future. If I oppose something, let's say my peer got promoted and I didn't, and I'm like, they shouldn't have got promoted. I should have got promoted. That's opposing, right? I could be in a mood of resentment, and that mood of resentment is not going to serve me well. And so I need to shift that mood out of resentment to another positive place. If this has happened like multiple times, my peer gets promoted and I haven't, I could get into a mood of resignation. It's like, I have no hope. This is just the way the future is. I might as well just forget it and do something different. I might as well go back to being an individual contributor. I might as well look for a new job. And so there's the moods of acceptance, which if we can get ourselves to be in that mood of acceptance, we're going to be in a much better place. I may not like it. I can live with it. But if I can accept it, I'm going to be in a much better place. And so acceptance is getting to a place of peace and serenity. And then the other one is in the future. It's like not knowing what's going on in the future. It's like, oh, I'm curious. I'm in wonder. I have ambition. I'm open to what's going to be going on. And that's really where we want to shift ourselves. There was some research done about one of the most in-demand skills at this point in time, and self-editing leadership is one of them. I already talked about this a little bit, but self-editing leadership takes awareness. It takes being present. It takes staying awake, because so much of our day is just running subconscious, automatic. I'm a big advocate for meditation and mindfulness practices because it helps as a leader stay in the self-awareness, the ability to self-edit. Self-editing is the ability to pause, reflect on the situation, refine your response before acting on it. Stephen Covey talked about this in 7 Habits. So it's not a new concept, but it's becoming more and more important as we're heading in the next wave of AI integration. And so there's the concept of a 3-beat pulse. You break it up and then you say, okay, now I'm going to reflect what's going on. And then I'm going to consciously choose a response that's going to serve me the best. And so just really quickly, here's a practice for shifting mood. First, you notice it, name it. It's good to name it out loud. I'm in resignation. I'm in resentment. 2, identify the assessment. What am I telling myself about this? What's the story I'm telling about this? I'm never going to get promoted. Well, then I'm going to need to ground it. Well, is that true? Is it true that I'll never get promoted? Well, that's not true. I'll never get promoted. Okay, well, then I'm going to declare and commit. I'm going to choose a mood that's going to serve the outcome I want. I'm going to name it out loud. Like I said, action can shift your mood. And so take some action that's going to do that. But don't get stuck. We have to have enough regulation and maturity to say, I am going to take action to shift this mood, because if I don't, this mood is going to prevent me from taking the actions that I won't. I'm seeing this a lot. I work a lot with people that are in job transition, and there are some people that get in a mood of resignation and they stop making calls, they stop reaching out to people, they stop, and they're worn out from the mood. If they can just shift their mood, they can get into action, and then that action will create the results that they want. And so I know I've talked a lot about mood today. It's such a powerful thing, and I really encourage people to give that some thought. So the next area is trust and stand. As we work with AI and getting responses and using the work, we really need to know where we stand. And we need to know what we stand for as we're working with that, not just taking the answers. Trust is not something you have. It's not a thing. Trust is an assessment that somebody else has of you, and it's always in a domain. And so in order for you to build trust with somebody, they need to assess of you that you're sincere, you mean what you say, that you're competent, you have the skills to get the job done, that you're reliable, that through history, they see they can count on you to always get done what you say you'll get done. And then you have integrity. You always have a stand for what you say. And a lot of times people say, I trust that person because I like them, or I trust Jim for everything. It's like, well, for everything? It's possible you can trust somebody in one domain, but not another domain. But this is the criteria to assess trust. Next is your stand. And I think this is one's really important today more than ever. If I asked each of you to write down your stand, what would you write? And I think most people don't think about it. They might start writing something, but most people don't even think about it. And so if I said, well, what's your stand? What do you care about? Where are the boundaries? How do I want to be known? What am I committed to? I could list 10 things I would say are my stand. And they're principles that when I come up to something, it's like, yeah, I'm not doing it. And we all have a stand. Like if we all go into a store together, I'm pretty sure none of us would steal anything. So we have a stand, I'm not going to steal. But then you start thinking about other areas, like what are we doing every day where we're kind of wishy-washy around it? So do we have a stand around it? So a stand is a grounded, tested set of commitments that you're willing to stand by and what you're willing to pay a price to uphold those things. So let's go into leading your own AI use. And this is one that probably really resonant for each of us as we use generative AI for sure. And what I find interesting is how many blind spots we all have around this. And how many of you in this last week discovered some new about AI? Like you thought of something you hadn't thought about, like, oh my gosh, I could do this. You just say yes in the chat. If this last week you had an experience with AI where it was like, I got this idea, I could do this. It's like, well, you know what? I just thought of something. If I tell AI to play the role of this person and give it this data and match it up with that, oh my gosh, I'm seeing yeses all over the place. And so then we talked about blind spots. Where are we missing opportunities? We have this biology called reticular activating system, and we're conditioned to only see certain things and focus on certain things. And something I've been working on is trying to open up the aperture more. Let me see things I'm not seeing. I want to see things I'm not seeing. I want to think of things I'm not thinking about. Let me open up my mind to recognize and imagine and visualize things that, because when that happens, all those yeses, Rich, coworker can pull from a Power BI, a message or response every day. And so as we think of ourselves as observers and thinking about AI as a partner, is every day, where are the opportunities? I was watching a video with Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, and he was talking about how he's using AI to invent new businesses, new business models, invent ways of creating new value streams. And I could just see his brain opening up these channels of observation. If you think about the light bulb or the internet, or the iPhone, somebody visualized that in their head. It wasn't out there to be found. Like the light bulb wasn't out there to be found like gold. Somebody invented that. And if we can expand our thinking and expand our awareness and this inner game of working to open up possibilities for ourselves and for the community, we're going to see so much more than these yeses. Each one of those situations, we could put a cube next to that if we can really strengthen our inner game to see and notice and observe. And that excites me. I mean, that excites me, but there's still that responsibility that we have on how we're using AI. So I had a client that just joined with me. He's a senior, very senior executive at one of the top technology companies. You definitely would know it. And it was so cool because usually when a coaching client comes, they fill out some information, but he on his own used AI and Copilot and all of the Microsoft ecosystem to take all his notes, his journal, his emails, the meetings, the decision logs, and created an AI assessment like Insights. And I looked at that. That is just incredible. It was so powerful. And so most people aren't thinking about it that way. They're thinking about AI helping them do the work, like a better search engine. But if we're set up, AI can be like a coach to help us and take better actions and make better decisions. And so what assumptions am I making here? What evidence supports this? What evidence contradicts this? That's when I use a lot. I'll have a hypothesis on something and I'll go in and give me evidence that supports what contradicts it and help me get to something that is defendable. You know, the stakes are high. I'm going to share this with my CXO or my CFO. And especially if you tell it you're the CFO or you're the CEO, because they all come from that certain discourse and background. And let's get it right the first time. I don't want to have to go back and take another lap. I've used it for that as well. Help with emotional regulation. I just received critical feedback from my CXO about my team's performance. Let's say you're looking for a job and you just got a counter offer that's just not near where you want it to be. Like, okay, I'm not happy with this and I don't want to respond in a bad way to this counter offer. I want to be very healthy and thoughtful and keep me on the right side of emotional regulation. We talked about the stimulus and response. AI can help with that pause. Like when we talked about the pause that goes between an event and our response. If we can slow ourselves down, and AI can help us with that. It can help us the way we respond verbally, the way we respond in writing, the way we respond emotionally. There's just so much power here in doing that. We can use AI to help uncover blind spots. What am I overlooking here? And especially when we use AI a lot, it knows us. It's got a lot of our content from what's going on, our communication. We can stress test consequences. I'm big on what are the consequences of this, especially when you're making a request for something. If you're asking for a lot of money, I can help with your business case. Like the CFO doesn't want to spend the money. Well, if we don't spend the money, here are the consequences. And so I just think, especially when it comes to helping us with our emotional regulation and helping us get what we want by taking into consideration the audience that we're going to for an ask. Because if we don't get what we want, then it affects our mood, and then our mood affects our action. It can get this sort of spiral effect in that. Accountability with yourself. I'm trying to lose 20 pounds. Help me with that. Better language, accelerating learning, design your own future. As you're doing all this, the reason I mentioned stand is because we have to have a stand around all this if we're using it. And one of my biggest concerns is people are going to fast food drive-through. Oh, I'm just going to go through the drive-through. Oh, I'm just going to just have AI do this and I'm not going to even think about it. And so we all know this. AI can't get rid of our thinking. Just like I want to still figure out my own directions without my iPhone giving me the map. It helps me. I still have to be thinking. I still have to use my brain, because if we don't, our brain's going to go to mush, and certainly AI will take our jobs away. So wrapping up here, improving ourselves as an observer, it's the whole game. All of our results flow from ourself as a human being, which is our language, the stories we're telling ourselves, the stories we're telling others, our communication, our coordinating of action, requests and promises and commitments and declarations and assessments, our emotions, our moods, and our body, which includes our physical body and how we show up on the outside, but it's also our knowledge, our brain, our internal mechanisms. It is human self-leadership. We have to lead ourself, which includes our language, our emotions, our reactions, our body, our knowledge. And from there, we design our actions. We make interpretations of what's going on. We design our actions. We produce our results. And it's not shown in the diagram, but imagine there's a line that goes from results back to being. That's actually something called second order learning. And rather than just trying the same thing over and over again, that's insanity. If you go back and just change your action and try to get a result, you get a different result, but that's first order. Second order is when you don't get the results you want. You step back and you say, okay, what's going on? Am I in the right mood for this? What am I telling myself? Do I have the right knowledge? And then I'm going to take action. And when you lay AI on top of this, in terms of managing our being, designing our actions, even our interpretations, we're going to get far better results. And so it's not just about using the tool. I think most people are looking at AI like the next greatest Google search. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is a tool, but we can put a cube sign on that and do so much more. But in order to do more, we have to think about the human that we are and how we're operating, not just going through the motions on a more shallow level. And that's my invitation to think about that. So when I think about those of you that are wanting more in your life, you're wanting more opportunity, you're wanting a different career, you're wanting more money, the way we win that game is to become better observers, better thinkers, better decision makers. And AI has the real opportunity for that when we dial in that tool Because there'll be the next big tool that's going to come along. There always is. But the one thing that will always be common denominator is who we are as observers, as thinkers, as decision makers. And so you can take this and design for yourself, like, okay, think about the future. How am I going to apply this to future? Start practicing what we're talking about today. And how are you going to apply it this week? If you think about what we talked about today, what's one thing that stands out you think is going to be really helpful to you this week? Thank you, everybody, for coming. If you want to dig into any of this a little bit deeper, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or my link there to book a call.